Take it away, ladies.
Hi all, I'm Andrea from Sterling. Annie, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Here's my contact information. So if you have any questions or you want to see any galleys, if we have them, I can send them your way. Some of them are also available on Edelweiss, and then please follow us on Instagram. And next, I'm going to start out with some titles that were originally spring 2020. So if you've heard me talk or my wonderful colleague Chris Vicari talk in the last year, you've probably heard about them, but they've moved. So I wanted to highlight them again because they're now coming fall 2020, but we're still super excited about them. So we're starting with Andrew Carnegie's Mental Dynamite. So this is based off a series of booklets written by best-selling motivational writer Napoleon Hill. Andrew Carnegie's Mental Dynamite outlines the importance of 3 essential principles of success: self-discipline, learning from defeat, and the golden rule applied. Each chapter begins with transcripts from the conversation between Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie, and then it features commentary on those conversations from Hill, and then our author-editor, James Winokur, provides context for the modern world and kind of explains why these principles are essential and not just helpful for reaching your goals and for prospering. Then we have High Octane Brain. In this, Harvard and Yale trained neuropsychologist, Dr. Michelle Braun, inspires readers to understand the truth and brain health by offering a proven program to implement 5 features of the high octane brain. So those are improve nutrition, exercise, sleep, reduce stress, and increase engagement. This is packed with valuable tips that you can implement immediately to minimize common brain blips, exercise to boost your memory within minutes, and inspiring insights from 9 high octane brain role models that age from 44 to 103. This groundbreaking book will finally put your future of your brain in your control. Next is a new series from us. You may have heard us talk about this as well. This is Profiles in Crime. The first book, How to Catch a Killer, just came out a couple weeks ago. We're super excited to finally have this book out and available for everybody to check out. I find all of this really terrifying, but it's definitely the book that everyone's most excited about internally, and I get the most questions about. The next book coming is Serial Killers of the 70s. These are 30 medium-length profiles of well and lesser-known serial killers from the 70s. So, Bundy and Berkowitz, but there's also more obscure and equally diabolical murderers like the Sunday Morning Slasher and the Vampire of Sacramento. And then killer cults. Who doesn't find cults fascinating? I think it's so interesting to read about. And so this will take you through some familiar names as well: Charlie Manson, Jim Jones, David Koresh, but also other leaders you might not be familiar with, like Shoko Ishara, the mastermind behind the sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway. Across a series of profiles, we learn the jaw-dropping truth behind some of the most mystifying and deadly cults and their leaders, all of whom led their followers down a dark and murderous path. And extreme killers. So what is an extreme killer? This is someone who has confirmed 50 kills or more. So this is historical in scope and international in breadth. So you're really getting just the gamut of extreme killers here. It's a collection of 15 most extreme killers. And that's October. Next, something completely different, Vegan on a Budget by Nava Atlas. We've published a couple books by Nava Atlas. Her last book with us, 5-Ingredient Vegan, just did really well. I think it really struck a chord with people because I know there's a ton of vegan books on the market, but they are getting more complicated. There's more ingredients involved. You have to go to 3 different grocery stores and take an hour and a half. And really, who has time for that? So the 5-Ingredient Vegan, really simple promise: 5 ingredients, 20 minutes, and you have a meal. So Nava saw the interest in this and was like, well, let's also do it cheaply as well. So this is Vegan on a Budget. You can eat plant-based and not break the bank. Atlas supplies an arsenal of tips on the best plant-based protein bargains for the buck, how you can buy in bulk, safe and inexpensive non-organic fruits and vegetables, coupons for natural foods, using savings apps like Drop and Berry Cart, cheaper ready-made sauces. She's not gonna shame you for not making your own hummus if it's cheaper and easier just to buy it from the store, which I really appreciate about her. So her recipes are delicious. You're making everything from hearty soups and stews like white bean chili with sweet potatoes and squash, to roasted and baked dishes, to breakfast, lunch, dinners, even desserts like sweet potato chocolate cake and frozen banana ice cream, which sounds delicious right now in this heat we're dealing with. And next, staying with the vegan theme, this was her last book, we have vegan meat. So I'm vegetarian, so I might notice this more than the normal person, but vegan meat really has gone mainstream from Burger King to Dunkin' Donuts to most sit-down restaurants. You seem to be able to get some sort of Impossible burger instead of your general cow burger. But what happens if you want to cook them at home? So enter vegan meat. This is 100 recipes using trendy texture-based proteins from soy, pea, and other plant-based alternatives. It provides background on these products, including including the well-known companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, reviews the health benefits of a plant-based diet, provides tips for buying and preparing these meats at home, and then of course a slew of recipes to get you started. So things like brat sausage skillet stew made from Beyond Meat sausage, and meatloaf muffin parmesan. And then if you want something to drink with your vegan meal, this is Windows on the World. So this is the 35th anniversary edition of Kevin Zeraili's basically ultimate wine guide. He is the ultimate wine educator, and his entertaining teaching style has made this the must-have book, and it's a treasured favorite for the last 3 decades. He demystifies every aspect of wine, so grape varieties, winemaking technique, different types and styles of wine, how to read a wine label, and how to evaluate a wine in just 60 seconds. So if you want to be able to impress, this is the book you need. And the Wines of Sicily, plus a chapter written from the author's 50-year perspective on how wine and food culture has changed since 1970. He's been there, he's been writing about it, he's been researching it, and now he's going to put it all together so you can kind of see how things have changed, because they have changed a lot in the last 50 years. Next is the Boba Cookbook. So the past few years have really seen an explosion of this bubble tea. And bubble tea is really anything that has chewy tapioca balls included in it. So in reality, this is kind of a really broad spectrum. It can be anything from green tea, black tea, fruit and milk teas, and can come with a dazzling array of creative toppings. So this is 35 recipes for bubble tea that you can make at home. Everything from making your own tapioca balls to making different varieties on teas like using plant-based milk, sparkling strawberry pop, black sesame, and even trendy cheese foam teas. There will also be 3 to 4 snacks to go along with your tea, so you can have the full experience. The author is really the perfect author for this book. She owns Hello Always Tea in New York City, and she hosts a Bobarista class to teach people how to make this at home. She's also known for using homemade ingredients without artificial dyes and colorings, so it's all natural. And next is Victory. So this fall we'll celebrate the 75th anniversary of the World War II Allied victory. This stunning book will cover the war as told through AP stories and photographs as breaking news. AP was the main US chronicle of the war, and it will be organized chronologically with running heads identifying the month. So you're really experiencing it as you would have been if you were reading the paper every day during the war. There will be about 35 to 40 stories, major stories, plus some human interest stories scattered throughout. The editor is Alan Axelrod, and he'll include an introductory text for every chapter. And next, the Doomsday Book. Not sure if this book was really well timed or really poorly timed, but we're gonna go with it. So this is from Marshall Brain, the author of How Stuff Works, and he takes a deep dive into the wide range of doomsday narratives, including man-made events such as electromagnetic pulse attack and nuclear warfare, devastating national phenomenon such as eruption scenarios where robots take over the world. So this is really cool. It's fully illustrated. It's set up so the first part will give you a detailed description of the situation and how it could go down. It will tell you the science behind it, and then it'll tell you ways to prevent or prepare for its occurrence. And next is Vogue Knitting, the Ultimate Stitch Dictionary. So this is the giant all you will ever need stitch dictionary. This is 900 stitches, including 100 new examples. It encompasses knit and purl textures, cables, lace, colorwork, edgings, and other original combinations. It's pulled from actual patterns that appeared in Vogue Knitting magazine, and the stitches come from a range of their top designers, and they're all as unique as their creators. You can use the patterns as they're written or tweak them, combine stitches for beautiful effects, and find inspiration to design your own stitches, garments, and accessories. The patterns feature both text and chart instructions whenever possible to accommodate every learning style. This is from Vogue Knitting. We do a couple books with them a year, and they really have kind of their pulse on what their readers want. Every book we put out with them has just done so well, and also I love this cover. I think it's really gorgeous. And last, some of our Wicca titles. So these are the next two in the Mystic Library series by best-selling Wiccan author Lisa Chamberlain. First is Wicca Herbal Magic. It's centered around 13 herbs, most of which are inexpensive and really common. You probably already have them in your kitchen: basil, chamomile, cinnamon, dandelion, nutmeg, rosemary, thyme. They're mostly culinary and or medicinal, so once you're finished with your spells, when you have them left over, you can use them to cook with. So you'll be making a range of spells from magical teas to baths to oils to smudging and blessings. And it also includes practical and magical tips for working with herbs and purchasing herbs, or even growing your own magic garden, so you can just step out your front door and pick out what you need. And then we have Magical Crystal Magic, Wicca Crystal Magic. This is a beginner's overview of crystal witchcraft with a unique focus on the 13 most popular crystals. So again, things you recognized: amethyst, jet, moonstone, jade, quartz, rose quartz. This beautiful and handy guide covers all the basics, including information on how to choose and care for your own crystals, how to charge them for use in magic, how to harness their protective and receptive energies and spells and magical workings using crystals, including elixirs, candle spells, and charms. This is our second two books. If you go to the next slide, Annie, please. Those were the first two books in the series. Lisa Chamberlain is a best-selling self-published author, so we're really excited to have these now and to kind of bring her to a broader audience. And that's it from me from Sterling. Thank you guys so much for allowing us to have this time. It's really great to still get to do some book buzzes even though we're quarantined.
All right, hello everybody. I am Golda Rademacher. I'm the Library Sales and Marketing Director at Norton. I'm not wearing my book nerd t-shirt today, but that has been on steady rotation for these presentations. Annie, can you go to the next slide, please? So here are some useful links, which obviously you can't click on from the slide, but I sent them to Aline and she's gonna share them with you, and I think they're probably also on the handout that Annie made. So we have a lot of digital review copies on Edelweiss and NetGalley. I also made some book buzz videos for our ALA virtual booth. And so you can find more fiction and nonfiction and kids books videos there. And that is all for that slide. So next slide, please. So if you know books, or if you know Norton, I should say, you know that we do mostly nonfiction. So I had a very hard time narrowing down books for this presentation. And there's a ton more nonfiction titles in our Edelweiss catalogs. So next slide, please. 6 Days in August. If you ever wondered where the term Stockholm Syndrome originated, you probably never imagined a story like this. 6 Days in August tells the truly bizarre crime story of the 6-day hostage crisis and media circus that began with a group of men walking into a bank in Stockholm in 1973, wearing wigs, makeup, and sunglasses, and brandishing submachine guns. David King walks you through how it went from there to the hostages trusting their captors more than the authorities trying to rescue them. and Library Journal called it engrossing, well-researched, and tailor-made for true crime enthusiasts. My next book is If Then by Jill Lepore. This traces the history of a corporation that wanted to use technology to predict and manipulate human behavior. Sounds a little familiar, right? So before Facebook, before Cambridge Analytica, Google, or Amazon, there was the Simulmatics Corporation. Jill Lepore unearthed the almost unbelievable story of this long-vanished corporation and of the people hidden behind it. In the 1950s and 60s, Lepore argues, Simulmatics invented the future by building the machine in which the world now finds itself. The starred review from Booklist says, the rise and fall of a mostly forgotten early mover in the predictive analytics industry makes for a tale thick with hubris and junk social science and a grim foreshadowing of our present reality. Next slide. So the selected works of Audre Lorde is a definitive selection of Audre Lorde's prose and poetry for a new generation of readers. I included this because it has both essays and poetry, so it kind of straddles categories. Self-described Black lesbian mother warrior poet, Audre Lorde is an unforgettable voice in 20th century literature and one of the first to center the experiences of Black queer women. This essential reader showcases her indelible contributions to intersectional feminism, queer theory, and critical race studies in 12 landmark essays and more than 60 poems, selected and introduced by one of our most powerful contemporary voices on race and gender, Roxane Gay. Next slide. The Dead Are Rising is the life's work of Les Payne. For this landmark biography, he interviewed as many of Malcolm X's family, friends, and important figures in his life as he could. It was his mission to separate the facts from the fiction and correct any mistakes from the accepted narratives of Malcolm X's life. Les Payne was nearly finished with the book before he died, so his daughter, Tamra, she was his lead researcher, and she worked to complete the biography and helped bring it to publication. We think this will become the definitive biography of Malcolm X, and we already have starred reviews from Booklist and Kirkus. Next slide. Trust by Pete Buttigieg was just announced for October publication. The former mayor of South Bend and Democratic presidential hopeful says that trust is the essential foundation of America's democracy. In a century shaped by terrorism, financial collapse, Trumpist populism, global pandemic, and systemic racism, trust in our government, corporations, experts, and in one another has eroded. And for many people, that trust never existed in the first place. Pete writes that we are now experiencing the disastrous consequences of this erosion of trust. He offers a reckoning with the corruption of social responsibility, interweaving history, political philosophy, and some personal stories, offering a new outlook for how we can confront the next decade's challenges by building accountability. And his memoir, The Shortest Way Home, is also coming out in paperback, I think around the same time. I forgot to look that up. And that will have a new afterword talking about life after running for president. And my next book, Claire Massoud is well known for her novels, The Burning Girl, The Woman Upstairs, and The Emperor's Children, among others. Kant's Little Prussian Head and Other Reasons Why I Write includes 29 essays, including personal stories about her childhood moves from Connecticut to Australia and back. She meditates on Albert Camus, Teju Cole, and Valeria Luiselli, and tours her favorite paintings at Boston's Museum of Fine Arts. Altogether, the book crafts a vivid portrait of a life in celebration of the power of art. The Starred Publishers Weekly Review said, "These intimate, contemplative, and probing essays reveal Massoud's rich inner life and generosity of spirit." And next book. With his new book, 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World, CNN host and best-selling author Fareed Zakaria helps readers to understand the nature of a post-pandemic world, which hopefully we will reach at some point, the political, social, technological, and economic impacts that may take years to unfold. in the form of 10 straightforward lessons covering topics from globalization and threat preparedness to inequality and technological advancement. Zakaria creates a structure for readers to begin thinking beyond the immediate impacts of COVID-19 and looks at how we can reshape our future. Next slide. So this book is full of design tips, and you might even find some inspiration that you can use to influence the behavior of your library users, but I'm not making any promises on that. A shikake is a trigger for behavioral change to solve social or personal problems. Combining traditional Japanese aesthetics with the lessons of behavioral economics, Matsumura presents a toolkit for anyone who wants to create their own mindful designs and reveals how shikakes can help us address challenges of any size, including maybe climate change. Next slide. Strongmen, Mussolini to the present. We originally had this in March 21, but we moved it up to November for obvious reasons. Historian Ruth Ben-Ghiat covers a century of authoritarianism to explain why strongman rulers, drawing from a common playbook of machismo, propaganda, violence, and corruption, have found popular support even as they bring ruin to their countries. She gives readers insight into how such rulers think, who and what they depend on, and how can they be opposed. Next slide. Hello Habits by Fumio Sasaki. He is a Japanese author, editor, and minimalist, and his previous book, Goodbye Things, has been a good seller for us. That book was about decluttering on an even more extreme level than Marie Kondo, but you do not need to be a minimalist to be interested in his new book, Hello Habits. Sasaki synthesizes a wealth of insight about the science of habit formation and the role of willpower from influential psychologists, neuroscientists, and sociologists. He helps you to recognize that habits are what drive human behavior and to figure out how to use them to one's advantage. Each chapter is broken down into short sections, and he uses examples from sports, art, writers, and pop culture. Next slide. We Came, We Saw, We Left by Charles Whelan. I think this looks fun and will be a good armchair travel book. Charlie Whelan is mostly known for his nonfiction books on business and economics. When he and his wife were thinking about the kids growing up and going to college soon, they decided to do what they had been dreaming about, drop everything and travel for a year. This is not a how-to book, but he does talk about the logistics involved in taking a year off work, what to do about your house and your pets. And they maybe didn't prepare enough for the travel aspects, but they learned a lot along the way. From sneaking out of an army barricaded Peruvian village at dawn, to contracting a flesh-eating bacteria, to underwater navigational disputes in the Great Barrier Reef, to disastrous overnight trains in India, breathtaking views of Bhutan, snafus with the Argentinian police over Ziploc bags of white powdery pancake mix, the adventures abound. And he tells them in a lighthearted, interesting way that will either make you wish you could go on a trip like this, or if you're like me, it might make you feel okay about staying home with your nuclear family. And next slide. The Doctor's Blackwell by Janice Nomura. In 1849, Elizabeth Blackwell became the first woman in America to receive an MD. Her achievement made her an icon, but her sister MLA, eternally eclipsed, was actually the more brilliant physician. Together, they founded the first hospital staffed entirely by women in New York City. They prevailed against fierce resistance from the male establishment, moving among Britain, France, and America during a tumultuous time of scientific discovery and civil war. This major new biography celebrates two complicated pioneers who exploded the limits of possibility. Janice Nomura is a very active promoter, so I know she'll be willing to do online events and who knows, maybe in-person events. Next slide. What is Life by Paul Nurse is a short, clear exploration of the 5 fundamental ideas of biology: the cell, the gene, evolution by natural selection, life as chemistry, and life as information. He introduces us to the scientists who made the most important advances and takes us into his own lab to give a sense of the thrill of scientific discovery. In the last chapter, Nurse addresses biology's most pressing ethical issues, including gene editing, genetic testing, and genetically modified crops. And he concludes with a stirring tribute to biology's role in tackling infectious disease. And next slide. Small Time by Russell Shorto. He is a historian, and this time he's looking into the history of his own family. His grandfather and namesake, Russ Shorto, was a small-time mobster in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. He delves into the world of the small-town mob, an intricate web that spanned mid-century America, stitching together cities from Yonkers to Fresno. A riveting immigrant story, Small Time is also deeply personal, as the author's ailing father, Towne, becomes his partner in piecing together their patriarch's troubled past. Moving, wryly funny, and richly detailed, Small Time is an irresistible memoir by a masterful writer of historical narrative. Next slide. Four Lost Cities by Annalee Newitz is a mix of archaeology, history, and science. You probably know Newitz from their science fiction books, Autonomous and The Future of Another Timeline. In this book, they travel to four sites that were once centers of a sophisticated civilization: the Neolithic site of Katahoyuk in central Turkey, the Roman vacation town of Pompeii, the medieval megacity of Angkor in Cambodia, and the indigenous metropolis Cahokia, which stood beside the Mississippi River where East St. Louis is today. Newitz reveals the mix of environmental changes and political turmoil that doomed these ancient settlements. Tracing the early development of urban planning, Newitz also introduces us to the often anonymous workers, slaves, women, immigrants, and manual laborers who built these cities and created monuments that lasted millennia. Looking at the history behind these cities can also lead you to your own ideas or conclusions of what could happen to our cities. Next slide. The Life She Wished to Live by Anne McCutcheon is a biography of Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings, the author of The Yearling. She had a fascinating life. She even owned an orange grove in Florida. McCutcheon had access to a large archive of Rawlings' writing, including correspondence with her editor, Maxwell Perkins, and author Zora Neale Hurston, and she paints a portrait of a larger-than-life woman who refused societal constraints. Next slide. So, Useful Delusions. You need this book if you have any fans of the Hidden Brain podcast from NPR, or if you have fans of popular psychology titles. Vedantam argues that deceiving ourselves and others in some ways can play a vital role in human success and well-being. The lies that we tell each other and the lies that we tell ourselves sustain our daily interactions with friends, lovers, and coworkers. They explain why some people live longer than others, why some couples remain in love and others don't, why some nations and tribes hold together while others splinter. Filled with powerful personal stories and drawing on new insights in psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy, Useful Delusions offers a fascinating tour of an upside-down world. And next slide. Flight of the Diamond Smugglers. I don't have a lot of time left, but I wanted to keep this in because it looks fascinating. Matthew Gavin Frank delves into the world of diamond smuggling in South Africa, which is often done using pigeons. Next slide. So Countryman Press is an imprint of Norton that publishes beautiful cookbooks and guides to everything from mixing drinks and baking pies to hiking and exploring the country. The well-known explorer's guides are a staple of the travel section, and Countryman has expanded in recent years to include books on nature, country living manuals, narrative nonfiction, fitness and exercise, reference, pets, and humor. Next slide. Their big book in our winter catalog is the revised and updated King Arthur Flour Baker's Companion, which now has a new name to reflect the new branding for the company. The new title is King Arthur Baking Company, the All-Purpose Baker's Companion. This book has 450 recipes with clear, practical, and encouraging instructions for all types of baking, and we will have a new cover posted on Edelweiss soon. Next slide. So Thames & Hudson is an internationally renowned publisher of illustrated books on art, architecture, history, design, photography, fashion, travel, spirituality, and archaeology. And next slide. Norton is just starting to distribute Abbeville Press this summer. They were founded in 1977, and their list includes art, photography, and lifestyle books, as well as several titles for children and parenting from the Abbeville family imprint. Abbeville publishes the best-selling Expectant Father series by Armin Brott, which has a new edition coming next year, as well as other best-selling titles like Audubon's Birds of America, Ancient Trees, and the Tiny Folio Eyes. And next slide. Fanographics. So yes, there are nonfiction graphic novels, although we kind of need a better name for them. Dancing After 10 is a memoir of a woman who started losing her sight while she was working on the book. So she enlisted the help of Georgia Weber to finish drawing the book. And I also want to point out what cartooning really is, which is a collection of 4 extensive conversations with Charles Schultz. And the interviews were conducted by film critic Leonard Maltin, novelist Laurie Colwin, Fanographics publisher Gary Groth, and comics historian Rick Marshall. And next slide. Tin House publishes more fiction and poetry than nonfiction, but they do have some memoir. And this new collection of essays called White Magic by Alyssa Washuta is coming next April. And next slide. So finally, I can't resist including our kids' books in all of these presentations because Norton just started a young readers imprint last year. And one of the first books we published, Free Lunch, won the YALSA Excellence in Nonfiction Award. And then we also do distribute children's books from Tilbury House, Thames & Hudson, Abbeville, and some of our other clients. And next slide. So that was a lot of books, I know. Again, we have digital review copies on Edelweiss and NetGalley. There's my email address. You're welcome to send me any questions. And also, I have a monthly newsletter, which usually includes a print ARC giveaway. And I hope you're all doing as well as you can. And thank you so much for listening. And I'll turn it over to Annie.
Hello, I'm Annie Mazes. I handle all of the imprints at Workman Publishing. That's my email address if you'd like to get in touch, and my social channels. I also have a monthly newsletter. I'm happy to sign you up for it. I'm happy to send you ARCs if I have them. Certainly happy to whitelist you on Edelweiss, NetGalley. So please be in touch. My first book is The Hidden Life of Ice. This is a barely inhabited world, the Arctic, and not a lot of us really know about it. And Markoe Tedesco is a glaciologist, and this is one day in his life. So he takes us on the journey with him and his fellow scientists who are doggedly researching the changes that are going on because of climate change. And things that happen in this region really are going to affect everyone in the world. So it's incredibly important, and it's not very well known. I thought his writing was really lovely. I think that is just me being judgy, but as a scientist, I was, it was very poetic in a way. So I think the writing is great. But he unearths the secrets in the ice. So from evidence of long extinct polar camels, which is pretty rad, to the fantastically weird microorganism living at freezing temperature, he weaves together the facts of climate change and then the reflections on this endangered landscape. And he talks about the deeds of past Arctic explorers and the legends of the rare local populations. So all in all, just a fascinating read. Immunity. The immune system is our first line of defense, and just like our heart and our lungs, it works 24 hours a day trying to keep us safe. So what can you do to strengthen your immune system? Dr. Jenna Macciochi has spent her career studying the interplay of immunity, lifestyle, and health. And this book is filled with authoritative guidance on the best foods to eat to boost your immune system, the importance of movement, how often to exercise, the essential link between immunity and sleep. She debunks common myths, explores why some people never get sick, really explains how germs are good for you. So I think a very relevant topic. Love, Zach is ultimately an inspiring story, but it is heartbreaking. Zach Easter took his own life when he was just 24 because he had sustained severe brain trauma by being a no-holds-barred football player in high school, and it was only getting worse, and there was no recovery for him. And so instead of continuing with his treatment, he took his own life. So Reid Forgrave is an award-winning sports writer, and he has deeply researched and reported this story. He talks to Zach's families and friends and coaches. He explores Zach's tight-knit community, the football love that exists in this community. He interviews cutting-edge brain scientists, psychologists, sports historians, and he really explores the history and the culture of sports in America. And I mean, it is a call to really carefully think about the ideals and values that we have and that we want to instill to future generations, because CTE is an incredibly real, awful affliction. How to Astronaut is incredibly fun in a way that I think a lot of astronaut memoirs might not be as delightful and light. This is informative and funny. Terry Virts started in astronaut training, and then he became the commander of the International Space Station. So this follows the course of his career. It's real behind the scenes kind of vibe. It's offbeat, it's earnest. It offers, the basic rules of training, lessons, procedures on how to handle space travel, how to deal with a dead body in space, how to film an IMAX movie, how to go to the bathroom. So it's just 51 really informative, funny chapters, questions that you didn't know you might have. Iwigara, when translated, means the kinship between plants and people, and that is exactly what Enrique Salmon discusses in this fascinating book. He is the head of the American Indian Study program at Cal State University, and in this, he explores 80 plants. He addresses their historical and modern-day uses, medicine, food, spices, and includes plant entries derived from many different regions across the United States. Each plant includes the name commonly used, a short description, rich details about how the plant is used, tips on identification and ethical harvesting, and then traditional stories and myths and how it's been used in arts and crafts, and it really enriches the text. But I thought this book was fascinating, and I had not really ever seen anything like it. I think this book is going to be tremendously fun and helpful, especially, it's very well timed. I think a lot of how-to DIY books are quite popular. And this is like your ultimate collection. So Storey has been publishing how-to books for decades, and now they've put together this crazy, amazing collection of over 200 things. So you can learn, they're really visual tutorials, so it's really well photographed. But you can learn how to carve a turkey, capture a swarm of bees, create a butterfly garden, set up a dog agility course, keep a nature sketchbook, navigate by the stars, just like an incredible number of these kind of activities. So you really inspire new hobbies and experiences. It just got a starred book list review, and I didn't write it down, but it said something like, just because we all have to stay inside doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to have new experiences, and that this book is perfect for that. Uprooted. When Paige Dickey moved away from her celebrated garden at Duck Hill, it was one of the most acclaimed gardens in the States, she left a landscape that she had spent 34 years cultivating, nurturing, growing. But she started her next chapter in Connecticut on 17 acres of land. So at a time in her life, and most people's lives, she was in her 70s, her husband was in his 80s, when you might start downsizing, she greatly grew the land that she had, but she learned how to garden smarter and make the landscape work for her. But really, this is just an endearing story about transitions and the satisfaction and joy that you might get from new chapters in your life, unexpectedly. I think this book is going to be incredibly powerful. It's certainly relevant. Just got to start a review. Journalist Connor Towne O'Neill moved to Alabama as a white Northerner. He didn't fully understand and he felt a little bit removed from the racism that Confederate monuments represented. But as he witnessed people's responses to the battle over their removal, it became very clear that he played a part, because white supremacy is not a regional affliction. It is something that affects and is deeply ingrained in the DNA of America. So through the lens of the conflict surrounding the removal of the statues of Nathan Bedford Forrest in particular, he was the original Grand Wizard of the KKK. Connor examines white supremacy in America. It's a very sobering work. It's for fans of Robin DiAngelo, Tony Horowitz. Kisa Limon said we can no longer see ourselves as minor spectators or weary watchers of history after finishing this astonishing work of nonfiction. I think it will absolutely have an audience. Highly recommend reading it. The good ancestor. The most important question we can ask ourselves is, are we being good ancestors? Jonas Salk posited this question. He created the cure for polio in 1953, and he never patented his cure, so he didn't make money off of it at all, but he cured millions and millions of people. And his radical rethinking of what we owe future generations should really be an inspiration to us as a society, but it hasn't really taken hold. Businesses are really worried about next quarter. Politicians are very concerned about the next election, and there's not really any sustainable solutions to very real problems that we are facing as a collective human race. So in this book, public intellectual and philosopher Roman Krznaric explains 6 practical ways that we can retrain our brains to save our future. His aim is to shift our allegiance from our generation only to all humanity, present and future. The new rules of aging well. Frank Lipman is a leader in wellness and integrative and functional medicine, and in this book, it contains everything that he teaches his own patients about reversing the so-called symptoms of aging. So feeling lousy, looking puffy, they're not necessarily because you're getting older, it's because of the lifestyle that you have. And so he really addresses lifestyle changes, not necessarily your genes that are going to cause you to age. So you can learn the best choices for yourself in this book and help to feel and look good. We saw scenery. I agree with Golda. I think graphic novels, when they're nonfiction, need a better name. But if you are a fan of Roz Chast or Ellie Brosh, Linda Berry, We Saw Scenery is totally for you. It is superstar, Emmy award-winning comedians Merrill Markoe's laugh out loud funny story of growing up. She made all the illustrations, and she takes readers back through her time as a youth. So as a Girl Scout, realizing that what she was learning was basically housewifery skills to her earliest. Is it wifery? I know it's midwifery. Does that apply to housewifery? I'm going to look into that. She explores how she had these early crushes on uniquely awful boys, her growing obsession with television. So really she charts the divide between her adolescence and her adulthood. Markoe questions and berates her younger self. She reveals how much is opaque to people in their younger years and what you could learn from that and what you could teach yourself if you were able to go back in time. I'm super excited about this book, Paper Bullets. It is a true story. It is the little known tale of 2 incredibly brave women who were determined to rebel against the Nazis, and the way that they were able to do so was through their art. So they created these paper bullets. And they were wicked insults against Hitler. They were calls to rebel, subversive fictional dialogue, and they would plant them on Nazi soldiers on their little island in Jersey in the Channel, the British Channel. They were captured and sentenced to death in 1944, but they eluded and were able to survive. And they went on to create gender-bending art. And today they have had a resurgence of popularity under their artistic names of Claude Cahun and Marcel Moore. So if you type them into Instagram in particular, you will find examples of their art, and they've really become sort of like a cult following, these 2 women. But they created this incredible gender bending art, and they had limited resources at their disposal, but they were able to really affect change, at least morale for the community that they were living in. But it is just so fascinating. So if you're interested in World War II, Jewish history, LGBTQ history, political resistance, this book is filled, and it's so well researched. Douglas Brinkley and Hampton Sides said it was tremendously well researched. They were so impressed with it. So Big fan of this. Wake Up Grateful. Kristi Nelson is the executive director of a network for grateful living, and she unlocks the path to recognizing abundance in every moment. And she gives readers tools to be able to make this transformational shift in your daily lives. So instead of seeing a glass half full or half empty, it's having a glass at all that you should really learn to appreciate. So in this book, she gives questions for reflection, daily exercises, perspective prompts for appreciating the fullness of life right now. And it promises profound personal change through the practice of taking nothing for granted. How to sleep. I think, sleep troubles afflicts a lot of people. Certainly affects me. And Rafael Pelayo is uniquely set up to help with this. He is a clinical professor, but he's also a practicing sleep physician. So he has 25 years of experience with the practical and the theoretical. And his approach is to first teach readers about sleep, how it works. He explains that sleep is biological. You obviously don't learn how to sleep, but you learn how to sleep, but the way that we sleep is learned. Sorry, lost my train of thought. So how much sleep you actually need, he goes into that. He talks about how, everybody wakes up and it's not a weird thing to wake up during the night, but how can you teach yourself to go back to sleep immediately so it doesn't interrupt. Then once readers understand what sleep is and why it's so essential to our health, he offers a clear path forward to better sleep. So this book, I always feel a little awkward talking about it because it's about mortality and it's a difficult subject for people to discuss, but I am a huge evangelist for it and I think it is incredibly helpful. It is from the founders of Everplans, which is a digital company that helps people organize their lives. And it's just incredibly helpful. I have gone through this book step by step. I am enacting the things to do. It's giving me peace of mind. I mean, my daughter is only 2.5 and hopefully I have lots of years left, but like knowing that I know where all of my husband's Netflix passwords and all his account passwords, and he knows mine, and like what we want our funerals to look like. That's all stuff that I don't have to think about anymore. And that's such a relief. And I mean, I've experienced what it's like when that hasn't happened. And, if someone hasn't been as prepared and the people left behind what they have to deal with on top of dealing with their grief, it is a tremendously challenging experience. And I think that this book would really help guide people who follow their plans to a way less stressful thing. So if you can, sit with your mortality for a minute and realize that that's not what this book is, it is just like trying to help and lessen your load. I am a big proponent. So I hope that wasn't too weird. So I'm gonna finish up here with some nature and crafts and then some cookbooks. The Earth Almanac is just a delightful Zen book, moments of Zen. You can dip in, dip out of essays. Ted Williams captures the wonders of the natural world. Life in the Studio just got a starred review. It's a handbook for leading a creatively fulfilling life from renowned potter Frances Palmer. Stunning imagery in this book of her ceramics, her beautiful flower arrangements, her gardens. And step-by-step instructions for some of her most cherished techniques. Kinfolk Garden is the next in the Kinfolk series. It takes readers inside 30 indoor-outdoor spaces so you can really learn how to bring the outdoors inside and vice versa. And the Art of Tapestry Weaving, it is an in-depth technique guide. You don't really require expensive equipment. You will learn to create a range of images with yarn, including funky abstract designs, geometrical configurations, realistic pictures, and cookbooks. Field Guide to Cheese is my happy place. This is an incredible compendium of illustrated cheeses, 400 cheeses, beautifully illustrated, maps of their production, guides for perfect pairings. Delicious. Give me liberty or give me a drink. This is a complete tour of America's most bizarre booze laws, 65 recipes from 65 laws representing every state in the union, and is written by the nation's foremost alcohol reform expert. Cancer survivor Richard Lombardi is known as the cancer fighting chef, and he shares his easy, nutritious recipes that helped him get through his own treatments in cooking through cancer. And Thomas Keller is perhaps America's most beloved and decorated chef, and he has 2 restaurants, the French Laundry and Per Se, and they each have 3 Michelin stars, and now you can learn how to cook as they do in these legendary kitchens in this incredibly comprehensive book not for the novice, but tremendously gorgeous meals. And finally, some desserts. Baking at the 20th Century Cafe is by one of San Francisco's most talented pastry chefs. She shares 75 recipes and her secrets for modern spins on the decadent baked goods of Middle Europe. Skinny Southern Baking is from the creator of Skinny Southern, Emmy Award-winning chef Marilyn Carter. She reinvents her favorite Southern cookies, pies, and more, but they are gluten-free, dairy-free, refined sugar-free. And finally, the Pie Academy. This critically acclaimed dean of the Pie Academy, Ken Hadrick, delivers a masterclass in pie making, not sugar-free. Step-by-step photographic tutorials for perfect crusts, more than 250 pies. So you've got every single flavor of berry, fruit, nut, custard, chiffon. It is endless and delicious and very home-cook friendly, attainable. So that is us done. Thank you so much for tuning into our nonfiction buzz. This is a reminder again for the handout. If you want to download, you don't have to remember everything we talked about. You can just download all the slides that we presented today. So thank you so much. It's been great being able to talk to you, and we hope you take care.
I unmuted myself so you can hear me clap. Thank you, Annie and Golda and Andrea, for taking the time to join us today. We really, really appreciate it. I have recorded the session and I will share it out via email if you want to make all of your colleagues listen and see why you're wild to order all of these amazing nonfiction books. And the slides will also be available, or is the slides all in the handout, Annie? Okay, great. Everything's in there. So this is
everything we saw today is
wonderful, and I'll make sure that Golda's links get to you linkably. We can say farewell to Golda and Andrea and Annie because I'm sure they have things that they need to do. Bye, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Anna and I are going to talk about some fiction that is coming out soon or has come out. I'm going to start with a couple of books that have just come out, and then we're going to go into some forthcoming stuff. We still get some books in the mail from our various publisher friends, so that's one of the ways we get our hands on things. And we also order just about everything that tickles Anna's fancy off from our local independent bookstore, because we ourselves are currently supporting small business in Western Mass. So the first book I want to tell you about is Take a Hint, Dani Brown, which is Talia Hibbert's follow-up to Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Anna read this and she started reading it and would be giggling so loud and stopping and reading things out loud to me that I had to start reading it. It is a funny, sexy romance with a professor and a former rugby player. See, look, he picked her up. I don't know. It doesn't really work for me. But and Talia Hibbert is a hilarious writer who you should follow on Twitter if you don't already. And so laugh out loud, funny contemporary romance with like actual obstacles. If you are a romance reader, you know that sometimes obstacles are not very obstacular. You're like, why don't you just hook up? And you know, sometimes there are things going on. Yes, I am recording ours too. We're still recording. Thank you for checking, Kristi. I am going to, I would encourage you all to stop the listening and watching if you don't want to ruin your impression of what a book buzz can be, because Annie and Golda and Andrea are trained professionals and I am an enthusiastic amateur at best. The next book I wanted to tell you about just came out in June. It's called The Switch by Beth O'Leary. She wrote The Flat Share last year, which was one of my top romances. So this one just came out last month, and it is basically The Holiday, if you have seen the Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz movie, except it's a woman and her grandmother who do the switch. So there's like a family connection, but there's also that whole like swapping from the city to the village and action. It's set in England and it is another romantic comedy. And the last one I want to tell you about is, it's in my favorite genre. I haven't read it yet. It just came out on Tuesday, and it's called The Woman Before Wallace by Bryn Turnbull. This is about that sort of Gilded Age. It's the 20s, late Gilded Age, and people are posh and royals are messing around with inappropriate women. And it also has Gloria Vanderbilt in it. So if you're an Anderson Cooper fan, but I didn't tell you that the reason this is in the genre that I like is that it is historical fiction about real people. I don't really care about the historical record myself. I am very interested in the lives of women in previous ages. And so this is a really great genre for me in terms of, you know, finding out about history and a lot of stuff, but still having conversations and relationships that will engage my interest. I'm going to hand it over to Anna, and
ones that we will
and we'll switch off. Oh, you know what? That's cool. If you want to, if you want us to send you one of these books, tell us in the chat or email. No, just tell us in the chat, and we will try to get them out to you. There are a couple of books that are not up for grabs. The ones I just showed you. No, I mean, I would give away the Switcher, The Woman Before Wallace. But take a hint. This was like a purchase that we're going to keep. But the other two, anything that you want, we'll send out to you.
Okay, so I've got Set My Heart to 5 by Simon Stevenson. Oh, sorry, I know where the camera is. For fans of Frederick Bachman and Gail Honeyman, it is about a robot who develops feelings. It's coming out in September, and it has a little blurb from Simon Pegg. So that's all you need. It's like sci-fi-ish, but not really. It's more about feelings and exploration of what makes us human.
Woo! Wasn't there a book about that with like science?
Okay, so The Orphan of Cemetery Hill is Massachusetts specific. It's by Hester Fox, coming out in September as well. It's about a woman who can communicate with the dead, and she gets enmeshed in a plot. She grows up basically in a Boston cemetery, and she gets enmeshed in a plot of the resurrection men, possibly grave robbers, I'm guessing. So this is like historical suspense. Oh, look at that. You're making me big.
Oh.
This just came out this week, I think. The Shadows by Alex North. Well, Alex North's last book was very popular, and this one is, there was a murder in a friend group 25 years ago, and this guy has to go back to town because his mom is sick, and the person who killed his friend was also his friend and disappeared right after the murder, and then weird stuff starts happening. So thrillery.
I like these thrillers that are someone going back home after 20 years. I think I've got one or two in my file.
This one looks adorable. It's called Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. It's a Japanese book, and basically the concept is that you can travel back in time at this little coffee shop, but you only have as much time as it takes before the coffee gets cold.
Yeah, the cover is adorable.
This one's coming out in November, but this one is very tiny and it looks adorable. You want to do some?
I can do a couple. Nope, that's the one that I was going to do. This one is a near future sort of dystopia, Road Out of Winter by Alison Stein. There we go. It is about a young woman who lives in Appalachian, Ohio, and her family are marijuana farmers, and marijuana is illegal, which is weird. So it's an all too possible near future with chosen family. Oh, look, it's with the, I love book jacket copy. With the gripping suspense of the road, see it says road right there, and the lyricism of Station 11. So, you know, this could be for your Station 11 people. And that's one of the things that we're looking for, is how to connect readers to books based on things we already know about. The next one I want to tell you about is another one that Anna was reading and kept reading bits to me out loud. And I have an ugly galley, so I'm showing you the cover on my phone. It's Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellefleur. If you look right here, there's Space Needle, which means it's set in Seattle. If you look right here, you can see there are two ladies kissing, which is one of my favorite things. And also, it kicks off with fake dating. So, fake dating, two ladies in Seattle, catnip for Aline. But I have to tell you, see, I've only read this much. Anna's read the whole thing, but I've only read this much, and I'm already like, oh my gosh, this writer has spent quality time in Seattle, because she's talking about one of the really dreadful public restrooms in downtown Seattle, which I always have to pee. So knowing where the restrooms are and also knowing if they're terrible or not is good. Sometimes you just have to pee. So
Right, the best thing about it is that one is a astrologer, and she does the zodiac sign like listicles. And so, like, what rom-com are you based on your zodiac sign? So I would be Sleepless in Seattle, and Aline would be The Holiday.
hey, I was just talking about The Holiday.
Aries, Fools Rush In, Taurus, Sweet Home Alabama, Gemini, She's All That, Cancer, While You Were Sleeping, Leo, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Virgo, The Proposal, Scorpio, My Best Friend's Wedding, Capricorn, 2 Weeks Notice, Aquarius, Clueless, and Pisces, Never Been Kissed.
So now you can make note of that. I'm trying to make a stack so that I can give you a list of these books in the order we have talked about them, so that you don't have to take notes. So when that stack falls over is when the Jenga book buzz is over. Go ahead.
This is coming out shortly. It is one of those where there is a guy who wrote a series of intriguing murder mysteries a long time ago, and a current person wants to interview him and learn more about them, but then she discovers that there's some inconsistencies in the mysteries, and that maybe they were actual crimes. Creepy. Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. I can do this. I know how to do it. This is coming out this month, or it has come out. Basically, it says Ocean's 11 meets Drive, but this guy was the best wheelman south of the Mississippi, no, east of the Mississippi. Sorry, geography is not my strong suit. But in the Gulf, basically it's like a one last job kind of thing. He's out, but they're gonna pull him back in. You know,
Like they
one
always
last
do.
time. Did you have more?
Yeah, I have a bunch. This one kind of tied into one of the ones that Anna just gave you, the Eighth Detective, because this one, The Book of Hidden Wonders by Holly Crosby, is about a young girl who is immortalized in her father's illustrated books that contain family secrets. So it's kind of got that elaborate treasure hunt. She grew up in a ramshackle mansion in the English countryside. Her father wrote these books that she's in, and but they also have family secrets. So it's kind of got that cozy thriller thing going on, and it looks interesting. And on the topic of combination books, which always make me laugh when the publisher copy says, Dear Child by Romy Housen is Room Meets Gone Girl, which would appeal to some of our readers and might not, but the young woman escapes, but people don't think she's who she says she is, and so it is thrillery. And it looks like it's blurbed by Alice Feeney, who wrote Sometimes I Lie, which I really enjoyed. Don't listen to all of the, oh, Heather, I'm sorry about the audio. I just remembered we're on the crappy computer. Yay! The microphone's not up here. Oh, Anna's going to get the microphone, so I'm going to keep talking about my pile of books. Because it's not hard for me to talk closely and loudly. So this this is like a stack of thrillers, and so maybe I'll blow through them really quickly. This is The Seduction by Joanna Briscoe, and that looks like a psychiatrist's couch, and it is indeed, because Beth's mother disappeared when she was a child, and now Beth thinks that her daughter Fern is keeping secrets from her, so she goes to therapy, but then does the therapist know the answer? Who knows? Thank you for the review, Heather. I appreciate it. The Last Wife by Karen Hamilton is about Nina and Marie, who are best friends until Nina was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and she asks Marie to fulfill her final wishes. But her mistake was thinking Marie was someone she could trust. So, thrillery, action. Oh, look, it's right there. Anna went downstairs to look for the microphone, and it was right here. I will plug it in. Look, it's a snowball. And then it will work better for you guys to hear me. How's that? Now you don't have, now I can't quite see myself on the screen. The Bright Lands by John Fram. This is, I think, my token white guy. Oh no, I've got two token white guys. You will find that I am often prioritizing lady writers, and I try to prioritize writers of color. I will confess that publishers don't prioritize writers of color, so I don't always have galleys to brandish in person. And this one is, oh, right, the central character is gay, and he was shamed out of town 10 years ago. And it's got like it's got a football, a quarterback goes missing, and there's secrets in the town, and it's in Texas. And for some reason, the gay man who got out of town has to come back and fix everything. But they always have to, you always have to go back home. Honestly, you have to go back home in romances, and going back home in thrillers is another one. And Anna's back, so I'll hand it over to her.
I have a thriller called The Stone Girl by Dirk Wittenborn. It's coming out this month, which I think this is a white guy, but it involves a group of wealthy men who prey on women, and then a group of women who decide that's enough.
Nice.
So, you know, it says 3 women scarred by a chain of misogyny and death at the hands of a secret brotherhood seek a reckoning.
I do like a reckoning.
I'm going to do this one. Outlawed by Anna North.
This one's for Heather.
It's for Heather. It's coming out in January of next year, so it's like super early. But feminist Western in a world where women who are barren are routinely hanged as witches. You have to turn outlaw if you want to survive. The Crucible meets True Grit.
Which, again, I love these combos. This is another one that might work for Heather. It is called Ruthie Fear by Maxim Loskutov, who is a white guy. And in this haunting parable of the American West, a young woman faces the violent past of a remote Montana valley. And it seems like it's got like a headless horseman thing going on, but it says an entirely new kind of Western. And my colleague Heather said that, ooh, she likes a reckoning. Recently read a book that I don't remember the title of, but she was telling me about it being a feminist, gender swap Western.
Sarah Gailey one?
I don't think it was the Sarah Gailey one, which is also another one that she might want to read. So Ruthie Fear looks like it is also good. This drawing on the cover is just compelling. You can just drop into it. And we'll look for Heather's reviews when she has time to get to them. Do you have any more?
I'm done.
I have 2 more, and then we're going to let you get back to your lives and work and patrons. I loved the cover of this, The Safe Place by Anna Downs. It's got like a gorgeous swimming pool on the coast, and it says, Emily is a mess. Emily is desperate. Emily is perfect. So this CEO offers an out-of-work actress a summer job as a housekeeper housekeeper on his remote French estate. Emily is super into Scott's lovely wife, Nina, and his eccentric young daughter, Aurelia. But they are hiding, Scott and Nina are hiding dangerous secrets. And if Emily doesn't play along, the consequences could be deadly. So many thrillers. I don't know if thrillers are working for my personal imagination in these uncertain times. So, oh yes, Heather's book was How Much of These Hills is Gold by C. Pam Zhang, which it sounds really good. The way she was talking about it at our staff book chat. The last one that I have, and there's no particular reason that this is the last one, but it is a thriller by Wendy Walker called Don't Look for Me. And I don't know if you can tell, but those raindrops are foils, so it's kind of sparkly and cool. And it's, you know, it's another thriller by a lady, and I am a bad mother. I am a burden to my family. They are better off without me. So a woman disappears, her car is abandoned miles from home, and a note is found at a nearby hotel. The criminal justice people, ooh, look, it is pretty and shiny. Criminal justice people call this a walkaway, and they don't always want to help you look for them. Just like they're like, oh, your missing kid is a runaway. They didn't get taken by a guy in a white van. And this is a master class in psychological suspense, blurbed by some other thriller writers. There's always a huge stack of these, and sometimes I can't get the galleys given away. Nobody seems to want anything except Andrea wants Woman in the Walls. You can also reply to my email when you're looking at this list that I'm going to compile in order to send it out to you. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're really glad to have you. And if you want to throw your email at me or reply to my email, we can add you to our contact list so that you don't have to wonder about so you can unsubscribe to All Regions and still hear what we're doing.
What are we doing next time?
Next time is next month. Our Readers Advisory Section meeting is.
Was it Pam?
Is it Pam talking about horror, or did she already do that?
I don't think she already talked about horror. Pam, are you talking about horror?
I think it's Pam talking about horror next time. Oh, October meeting is a business meeting and horror. And so our business meetings are virtually painless, and you are welcome to join us as a member or as a non-member of MLA or the Readers Advisory Section. So tell all your friends, and it will be held on Zoom, and it's not until October, so it's not next month. It seems like we're taking the summer off. Right. We made that connection. Horror in October. Look, I can't even make my fingers meet. It's been a long morning, y'all. So thanks again, and we are so good. I'm glad that you're here for at least part of this, Pam. It was good to see you. It was good to see everyone, or just your picture or your background. If you want to leave, you're welcome to leave. If you want to unmute yourself and you have any questions for us, I am available to stick around for a few minutes if there was anything you wanted to talk about. Otherwise, we're done. Thanks. Bye.